Pardon the interruption, but I'm Mike Wilbon. Tony, it's National Bald is Beautiful Day. How should we celebrate?
Tony Kornheiser, I'm not bald. I have all this hair on the sides. I'm thinning.
Okay.
That's it.
I've
thinning,
sort of,
right?
I've missed that the last, 30 years. I remember when you had hair, big red afro. I was there.
Yeah, I
got pictures.
I was in high school. You weren't there. You were 4 years old.
You weren't in high school. You had it actually as a grown man, too.
Stop it. Welcome to PTI, boys and girls. In today's episode, the NBA suspends the owner of the Suns. Jets coach Robert Saleh makes a promise, and Mike Trout keeps homering. But we begin today with Nathaniel Hackett's decision to let the clock wind down and then try a 64-yard field goal instead of giving Russell Wilson the chance to make 4th and 5 last night on Denver's last play. The kick was wide left. Denver lost to Seattle. Wilbon, were the Broncos right to try this kick rather than putting the ball in Wilson's hands?
It's about the dumbest football decision I've ever seen. The dumbest. It ranks up there with anything you can decide at the end of a football game that is stupid and idiotic and moronic. And I think I texted you in live time last night knowing you were going to be asleep.
Yes, you did.
But I needed to vent.
And
I was just one of many, many people who needed to vent. You got a kicker who's 1 for 8 in his career, 60 yards or longer. But you've got a quarterback, 4th and 5, who's had magical moments on that field, who you just gave up a bounty to get in a trade, who's going to the Hall of Fame, who, by the way, poor Russell Wilson, victimized again, twice in his career, one more important than the other, the Super Bowl, by the dumbest play calling imaginable. Tony, can I be stronger? It's as stupid as you can get to say, let's try a 64-yard field goal instead of handing the ball to my future Hall of Fame quarterback who's played in this stadium on this field for 10 years and made these moments happen. 4th and 5, and you got timeouts you didn't use. It's dumb.
Yeah. I would say it ranks below the decision to pass on the Super Bowl, which ends up giving New England the Super Bowl. But it's very, very close. I am not going to try and defend it. The kick missed. I'll try to explain it. He's a first-year coach, Hackett. He wants to do something dramatic and win a game. Maybe, just maybe, he looked at Brian Daboll the day before with the Giants, also a first-year coach who went for 2 on the conversion and was able to beat Tennessee that way, and he thought this was his opportunity. Now, would I have done that? Would I have given the ball to Russell Wilson? Of course I would have given the ball to Russell Wilson. I just paid $1 billion for him. He's my long-term quarterback. He's my solution. Of course, I don't see any other way, but I want to be clear on this, Mike. That's not why they lost the game. Denver lost the game because they fumbled twice going into the end zone.
Turnovers,
they shouldn't have been in this position at all. This is the same thing that happened with Cincinnati. Cincinnati shouldn't have gone to overtime. Cincinnati should have kicked the PAT, but it was blocked. This thing that happened last night reminded me of what Matt LaFleur did to Aaron Rodgers a couple of years ago in the playoffs.
Took the ball out of his hands.
What are you doing?
Tony.
And so I think Hackett put himself in the stew. I think if this happens again during this season, people are going to look at him and say he can't coach.
What instinct is in a professional football coach that says, let me trust a kicker who's 1 for 8 from 60 yards on the road against Russell Wilson? It's just stupid. It's just what it is.
I agree with you, but he had enough leg. It went left. He got it there. He had the leg.
Unbelievable.
But no. Russell Wilson deserves that because that's why you acquired him.
That's why you get him.
Yes.
It's the point. God. Let's move to the perpetually sorry New York Jets. Your team, the team of your youth, Tony.
Yep.
They haven't made the playoffs in 11 years, and head coach Robert Saleh, he's just 4-14. But yesterday he told the media that he is, quote, taking receipts on all the people who continually mock and say, we're not going to do anything. I'm going to be more than happy to share them with all of you when all is said and done, close quote. Tone, do you think Saleh's confidence is well placed?
So that is a new phrase for me, taking receipts. I hadn't heard it before. Yeah. I wish I had done that in my career because I'd have 10 drawers filled with receipts at this point in my life. And I wonder, are they the receipts, Mike, like at the CVS that are very, very long. And in the middle, you find you get a $2 bonus bucks. So when you go back the next time, you can buy something cheaper. The difference is that CVS sells quality merchandise and the Jets stink. Okay, the Jets don't just stink for Salah. The Jets stunk for Adam Gase. The Jets stunk for Todd Bowles. And at the end, with Rex Ryan, they stunk for him. I'm thrilled that Salah has this kind of spirit, and I hope he has it at the next place he coaches. Yeah. Because here's what he doesn't have. He doesn't have a starting quarterback. His starting quarterback is hurt, Zach Wilson, and you don't know when he gets back, is he the right guy? Sam Darnold wasn't the right guy, okay? Before him, Josh McCown wasn't the right guy. Ryan Fitzpatrick wasn't the right guy. Geno Smith wasn't the right guy. And at the end, Mark Sanchez wasn't the right guy. If you don't have the right guy at quarterback, you're going to spend your coaching career taking receipts.
Tone, that's so well said. There's nothing much I can do but to sign off on it. Put a little initial down by the bottom, because you're 1,000% correct. I will say this, and we just talked about a coach doing what I think is one of the dumbest things I've ever seen. Great athletes and great coaches have to have irrational confidence. My dear friend John Barry would remind me of that all the time as we worked together for years. Irrational confidence bordering on delusional. You have to have it. You can't become great without it, without looking at people who say, well, you're not that good. You're too small. Your arm's too short. You're not strong enough. You need some extra. And they go right through it. They blow right through it successfully, and they have to have it. And Salah is perhaps demonstrating that. He's had to call on it in his life to be a great coordinator, great assistant coach. And, Tony, there's something about him. I've met him maybe once. I don't know him. I don't talk to him. But there's something that leads me to root for him. That, this would be sort of cool. That's interesting, Mike. If he could make good on this promise. It would be.
It's interesting that you like his delusions, but you don't like Hackett's delusions, trying to kick one from 64.
Because that was delusion on top of irrational.
We have news from the NBA. The league today suspended Suns owner Robert Sarver for 1 year and fined him $10 million after finding that he, quote, clearly violated, unquote, workplace standards. The NBA says its year-long investigation found that Sarver used the N-word at least 5 times when recounting the statements of others, displayed inequitable conduct towards female employees, and treated employees in a demeaning way. Wilbon, your thoughts on what the NBA learned and the punishment it handed down?
Tony, there's so many, actually. As you obviously know, and we talk about, I spent a lot of time in Arizona and some of it around this team and this franchise over years, long before Sarver took over, back when Jerry Colangelo was the owner and great steward of that franchise. And, Tony, I've talked to people this afternoon there. And first of all, there seems to be a lot of either frustration, build up to anger that there was not more done. Not necessarily blaming the league, but they're saying if there's this evidence that you can put into a report, if there's this much evidence, and you've uttered this particular word in one of those cases 5 times, what are we talking about? Is that not enough to get you tossed? And the demeaning behavior toward women. So some of this is gender-based, some of it is race-based. And Tony, Sarver has denied a lot of it, but Tony, there's so many examples that people around that team, formerly and currently, will cite you chapter and verse. And they're saying, what are you talking about justifying? Now, the league says it has done the maximum in terms of suspension. But there are 2 thoughts here that I've been talked about to people this afternoon. One, that his own partners could pressure him to sell. And after that year, he goes away. Or that the league hopes that there are so many suitors for the Suns offering so much money that he will go away and take some of it. So there is that hope in a lot of quarters, Tom, but there's so much to uncover here.
This is the maximum fine that you can levy in the NBA. My feeling is different than yours. My feeling is that a year from now, Robert Sarver is still going to own the Phoenix Suns. He's going to be an NBA owner, or as they pretentiously like to say, an NBA governor. Okay, whatever they found did not rise to the level of expulsion. This is a big story because it's a fine and a suspension, but it's not an expulsion. To me, this is not that much difference, except maybe by some small degree, of what the NFL has done to Dan Snyder. They said, we're going to fine you, and we're going to tell you, basically, you're suspended. You can't run this team anymore, which is why his wife is allegedly running the team. But at some point, Daniel Snyder is still the owner of the Washington team, and Robert Sarver is still the owner of the Phoenix team. So to me, it's not Donald Sterling. Now, I thought Donald Sterling was kicked out for similar things. Maybe I'm misremembering, but they said, you're out, pal, and they did not do that here.
Well, but Tony, remember one thing, audio and video with Donald Sterling, not with Robert Sarver, and not with Dan Snyder, as long as we're putting that under one umbrella. But Tony, I hear you.
So I have a question
the complaint.
for you. Let me ask you this question. I don't know Sarver. I've never met him. I don't know him as a person. It seems he's hired good people to run the Suns, and that is a quality team, and he's been inclusive on that. Am I not right on that?
Tony, it does. I mean, when you look at his coach and his general manager, both African-American men, successful, an executive of the year, a coach of the year, in the case of Monty Williams, and his star players. But, Tony, the question is going to be there'll be pressure on players now, I'm told. When they hear that he has uttered this 5 times, and it's in that report, and many things didn't make the report. Offensive behavior, we are told, and I believe the people talking to me about this, that there are other things that could have been in the report the lawyers didn't allow in. But that is in the report. How are they going to feel about that? And are they going to say at any point, we don't want to play for this guy? So, Tony, I think there's more. I think there's more to come here. Think there is.
Okay. Let's take a break. Coming up, Joe Burrow and Aaron Rodgers both struggled on Sunday. Which quarterback should be more concerned?
And Mike Trout has homered in 7 straight games. But is Framber Valdez doing something even more impressive?
You've been telling me about Sarver. It's time for toss-up. 2 men enter, 1 man leaves, finishes the show, then considers making a big NIL donation to Southern Illinois because they happen to play Northwestern this week.
Go right ahead.
What's first?
Go ahead.
Toss-up. Which star quarterback should be more concerned after week 1? Joe Burrow or Aaron Rodgers?
Aaron Rodgers, because Joe Burrow has Jamar Chase, and he's going to catch the ball. Aaron Rodgers isn't sure that anybody he throws the ball to is going to catch the ball. Aaron Rodgers didn't have a good game, but he had 1 interception and 1 fumble lost, and that's not terrible. Green Bay was nowhere close to Minnesota. Burrow had 4 interceptions and 1 fumble lost and should have won the game, and if the kick goes through on the point after, they win the game. Now, Burrow was sacked 7 times. That's really bad. Rodgers was sacked 4 times. That's really bad as well. I think Burrow just has to learn to get rid of the ball quicker if his line isn't any good, because that's what Tom Brady does. Try to emulate Tom Brady.
The answer is Burrow. His team went out and spent $1 trillion to put a better offensive line in front of him because he was, like last year, he looked like he was one of those guys running from the running of the Bulls. They were just trampling him throughout the season, and they're doing it again. Okay? So he and my man Justin Fields, who play behind offensive lines with nothing. There are high school offensive lines in places like Texas and Florida that must be better than what the Bengals and Bears are running out there, Tony. So the answer is that when your health is in jeopardy, you're right about him having a receiver. He's got that kid wearing number 1. He can catch it. And Rodgers really right now is very jealous of that. There's no question. But Tone, they can't keep 7 sacks with a revamped offensive line. My God.
Just because you revamp doesn't mean you're any better. It just means you're revamped. What's next?
Toss-up. More impressive streak. Mike Trout homering in 7 straight games, or Framber Valdez pitching 24 straight quality starts?
So I've got a small quibble here with a sort of definition of what we're talking about. A quality start is defined as going a minimum of 6 innings and allowing a maximum of 3 earned runs. Well, if you do that, Mike, that's a poor 4.50 ERA. I don't think that's high quality, which means I think you can throw in a couple of mediocre starts and keep that streak alive. On the other hand, Mike Trout, it's not 7 consecutive games that the team played. It's that he played. He sat 1 out. Cal Ripken never sat 1 out. So I'm not exactly sure what these things are about. Framber Valdez is having a great year, Mike. He's 15-5 with a 2.50 ERA. But you know what? He's got a teammate, the great guest on this show, Justin Verlander, 16-3 and a 1.84 ERA. So I'd rather have Verlander. I'll just tell you, if I'm forced to pick, I'll pick Trout because I think it's harder to hit home runs every game after game after game.
Tony, I think it is too, but let me just go to this one thing on Valdez. Trout is only playing against the opposition. Valdez is playing against the opposition, opposing hitters, and he's playing against knucklehead management types who want to yank you because you've been through the lineup twice. And you're right about the 4.5 ERA. I'm with you on that, Tone. Yes. And it's not like when guys, when we were covering baseball and following, growing up watching it, where guys had 30 complete games out of 39 starts. It's not like that. And they want to make something out of every stupid stat. Stats and information, people, please get out of my sight. But he's playing against the hitters and his own analytics fool people who are trying to get him out of the game. So to that extent, I salute him for having those 24 in a row.
Well, yeah, he's given him 6. He's given him at least 6 into a complete game the other night. He's given him at least 6. So he's not taxing the bullpen.
No.
Let's take one last break. Still to come, the Cowboys and Steelers get good news on their injured stars.
And will the Connecticut Sun even up the WNBA Finals against the Las Vegas Aces tonight? I don't know.
The Dallas good news. What they find out that Prescott broke a bone in his happy 54th birthday, Bernie Williams. Everybody is familiar with the core 4 of the New York Yankees who were on those 4 championship teams in the late 90s and 2000. Derek Jeter, Andy Pettitte, Jorge Posada, Mariano Rivera. But Williams played center field on all those teams. Spent his entire 16-year career with the Yankees. He was a lifetime .297 hitter, led the American League in hitting in 1998 at .339, 5-time All-Star, 4-time Gold Glove, 5th all-time in hits for the Yankees, and he's out there in Monument Park like the rest of them. Plus, he's a classical guitarist. Let's see Jeter try that.
Yeah, well, Jeter didn't have to do anything. Jeter can play one note. Bernie Williams, very talented guy. Tony, people don't mention him in the Hall of Fame. With everything you just read, with that resume, and given how important he was to winning, his name should be brought up more often in conjunction with Hall of Fame votes, to me.
Yeah, that makes sense. Happy anniversary, Bills and 49ers. On this day 30 years ago, Buffalo's Jim Kelly and San Francisco's Steve Young each threw for more than 400 yards as the Bills beat the Niners 34-31 in the first game in NFL history without a punt. Kelly's Bills would go on to the Super Bowl that year, their 3rd of 4 straight trips. The Bills would lose that Super Bowl to the Dallas Cowboys of Aikman, Irvin, and Emmett, the first of their 3 Super Bowl victories in 4 years. A couple of seasons later, Young would win the famous get the monkey off my back game over San Diego and throw a Super Bowl record 6 touchdown passes doing it.
Tony, we celebrate Steve Young all the time. We love him. We have him on the show. It's just incredible. Yeah. Jim Kelly, I told you last week we talked about the Bills. We're going to talk about the Bills all season. What they did to get there 4 times, to play through 3 disappointments and get back each time, who's got that now? Who's got the guts now? Who's got the stick-to-itiveness now to do what the Buffalo Bills did, led by Jim Kelly? I don't know that I see people out there that have that anymore.
Happy trails to Terry Francona and Phil Nevin on the same play. Both Francona, manager of the Guardians, and Nevin, manager of the Angels, were tossed last night by home plate umpire Ron Culpa with 2 outs in the 7th inning of the Cleveland win. Francona got the heave after arguing energetically that a pitch by Ryan Tepera hit Cleveland's Andre Jimenez on the foot. After Francona exited, Tepera wanted to throw some warm-up pitches to stay loose. When umpires told him to stop, Nevin flew out of the dugout in a rash, and Culpa quickly thumbed him too. You want action in baseball? There's action.
I don't like seeing Francona get thrown out. I make no bones. He's my favorite manager in the bigs. Tony, if the White Sox were managed by Francona, they'd be 20 games ahead of Francona's Cleveland Guardians and the Twins. 20. And we wouldn't be having this stuff with the White Sox being the biggest underachiever in baseball if Francona was in that dugout.
Let's go to the big finish. If we could, TJ Watt will not need surgery on his torn pec. He could be back in 6 weeks. That's good news, right?
Tremendous news. I mean, they got to be thrilled to hear that they're going to have him on the field sooner than later. Jerry Jones tells 105.3 The Fan that Dak's injury wasn't as bad as they thought. He could be back out there within 4 games. Your thoughts?
That would be great for the Cowboys if that's true. He had a break in the bone. He had surgery already. It sounds optimistic, but it would be great. CC Sabathia says Shohei Ohtani should win the MVP over Aaron Judge. Does that surprise you?
No. If you listen to Sabathia, and I like to listen to Sabathia, he's just a discerning guy with some wisdom. He's just smart to hear on all baseball matters. Doesn't surprise me. Dodgers clinch, and that's a legit position. Dodgers clinched the playoff spot already. Your reaction?
They're the best team in baseball. Of course they're in the playoffs. Last one, WNBA Finals Game 2 tonight. Aces host the Sun, lead the series 1-0. Who you got?
Connecticut hung in there and played great in Game 1, Tony. But I told you, I fear this is a sweep, and that would mean Game 2 would go to the Aces tonight at home as well.
Sweep. Woo. We're out of time. Trying to do better the next time. I'm Tony Kornheiser.
I'm not rooting for that. I'm rooting for a long, dramatic series. I'm Mike Wilbon. Same time tomorrow, Knuckleheads. You can get the PTI podcast on the ESPN app or Apple Podcasts. And now, here's Sports Center.